Hi everyone, welcome to this workshop on sports analytics with Tableau. In today's workshop, we're going to be going ahead and learning how to, analyze data sets within the context of sports. And I'm really excited to do this workshop. It's the fourth workshop in a series of four workshops really, which we're learning data visualization with Power BI and Tableau. So let's go ahead and get kick started with the last workshop of this series. So, what exactly is sports analytics? So, sports analytics is an emerging field in data science and visualization that's really begun to be adopted by teams in all kinds of sports played across the world today. There's a lot of data on players and games usually being collected and analyzed. And, if you watch games on television, many times you'll see that data being presented, right? You can see maybe averages, expected goals, maybe like total games won, total games lost. You can potentially sometimes even hear commentators looking at the numbers and providing their analysis of it and so on. But it's not just used on the television. In fact, it's being widely adopted within teams to identify future talent. For example, teams are going ahead and using data now to scout good players. In fact, we're going to be doing just that today. They use data to understand patterns in the playing styles of opponents. They use data to now provide feedback to existing talent within the team. So, they can tell them like, hey, in this game you've been playing like this, and, even in the past 5 games you've been playing that. We want you to make a small adjustment, which we think which will benefit you, right? So when you collect data, you can start to provide better feedback because you can start to identify patterns in the player's particular playing style. And of course, data is also used to do sports betting. It's not a hidden fact. There are a lot of fantasy leagues out there, but there's also like sports books. If you go to Las Vegas, in fact, you know, to any hotel, they have like these giant screens, 20 or 30 screens where they're playing all kinds of different sports like baseball and basketball and whatnot, and you can put money on it and hopefully win or maybe you lose. Now, it would be great for us to have a full semester to learn everything about sports analytics and how it's used in each sport and the purpose of, each type of method which is used per se, but we don't have that, right? This is a 2-hour workshop. It's in a small workshop series. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and teach you some of the common patterns that are present for all sports. Okay, so everything I'm teaching you today can be applied for any sport really, and the overall like just approach also can be used in many sports per se. Of course, the approaches can change, but I think the fundamentals will remain the same about what I'm trying to cover today. So what is the project we're going to be doing? So as you're aware, soccer is one of the most widely watched sports in the world. 3.5 billion people watch it every year. And with the amount of popularity and money involved, teams are always on the lookout for new upcoming talent, right? And today we're going to be analyzing a data set of 18,000 plus soccer players in the pursuit of identifying the best strong strikers under the age of 22 who fit a set of criteria provided by the sports club you're an analyst for, okay? We're going to assume the role that we are a data analyst for, let's say, Borussia Dortmund. They're a German club which is well known for identifying young strikers. So usually what they do is they use data to identify a good young striker, recruit them into their team, buy them cheap, and then sell them for a good amount of money. And they've successfully done this consistently over the last, 5 to 6 years, even more than that, some would argue. And most recently, their, player which they sold was Erling Haaland, who they had bought just a couple of years back at a I would say dirt cheap cost as compared to how much they just sold him for. Now, specifically when they're looking for a striker under the age of 2, here are some of the rules they're given. They said, of course, the dimension has to be players, okay? And the measures are that they want to basically see the player needs to be, must have like a skill of attacking, finishing at least 70. So the skill level for finishing, that's basically the ability to actually score a goal when they're in pressure. Can they put the ball into the net? Should be at least 70 or more. The ability to dribble with the ball, that means keep the ball at their feet, must be 65 or more. So all the skills are basically from 0 to 100. The acceleration of the player must be 70 or more, so they should be able to not only run with the ball at their feet and not lose it, but they should be able to do this fast. So they should be able to pick up speed really quickly and accelerate when needed. And their shot power, that means the ability to shoot the ball into the goal with a lot of power, must be 60 or more. Now, here's some of the sub-criteria which they've put in. They've said that, in addition to this, they'd love to see that the player is a good header of the ball. The contract should expire by 2024 per se, and then the wages as well is important to them. The cost is also important to them. And of course, like the player must be 22 or younger. And in addition to that, the player must play in an attacking attacking positions, such as, what are your attacking positions? You have your striker, you have your CF, LF, RF. So center forward, left forward, right forward. Your LW, your RW, it's your left wing, right wing. So players who play on the wings who can become strikers in the future. Okay, and then you also have your CS, which is basically central striker, RS, and your LS. Okay, cool. So these are all the positions you're looking at, and let's assume even they're looking at central attacking midfielders. So this is all the criteria they provided to us. Okay, so what we now need to go ahead and do is we need to build out a chart that allows them to compare these players super easily. Now, one approach one would say which we could take is we could make different bar charts, right? We could make one bar chart to put attacking finishing and show all the players who have great attacking finishing, another bar chart for dribbling, another bar chart for acceleration, another bar chart for shot power. But those would be 4 separate bar charts, right? And trying to figure out the best players which match or which have meet all the criteria wouldn't be super easy if you have 4 bar charts. So what's a better chart to use out here? A better chart to use out here is a scatter chart. Okay, we're in fact going to be building this scatter chart right in front of us, which is just going to load up. Give it a second. So this scatter chart is going to be a lot more insightful as compared to what a bar chart would provide us, because on this scatter chart what I can see is each player, I can see their attacking finishing skill, I can see their dribbling skill, I can see the acceleration, I can see the shot power, right? So I can see out here potentially we have some good players who look pretty strong to me in my opinion. Like we have this Matthias Bardera, his dribbling is not that great, but his finishing and his shot power seems to be really good. So he definitely get the ball into the net. Maybe he can't run too much with the ball per se. So his acceleration's not that high, his dribbling's not that high. So we're gonna start to build out these charts, and we're gonna have these tooltips which provide us with more details in the player. And to get started, what we need to go ahead and do is we need to actually open up Tableau Public on our computers. So let's go ahead and open up Tableau Public on our computers now, everybody. So let's go to Tableau Public. And let's get started. So to get started, we need to connect to the CSV file which I provided to you all. Okay, so I've given you a link to this data set. You can download it. It was sent in the email, but if you want to download it, I've also provided a link to the Excel spreadsheet. It's loading up, but basically you can just go ahead and download it. Not sure why this is showing up in Arabic, but I'm assuming it's because I'm in Dubai at the moment. But okay, just download it as a Microsoft Excel file or as a CSV file. Okay, that's what you got to do. Now, go ahead and connect to a file. So if you got a CSV file, you're going to select text file. Okay, so you're going to select text file and then select the CSV file on your computer. And now you'll see we have this file right here, the Soccer's Player 21 CSV. So you'll see it's loaded up, and let's take a look at the columns we have in front of us, right? We have a SoFIFA ID, okay, and that ID is basically the ID of the player. So we've scraped this data actually from the SoFIFA website. So each player has a unique ID assigned to them, okay, because players can have similar names, but each player will have its own unique ID. In addition to that, we have the URL from the page which we basically scraped. We can see the player's short name, we can see the long name, we can see the age of the player, their date of birth, their height, their weight, their nationality, their club, their league name, their league rank, because in one country there can be 5 leagues. So for example in UK you have I think 4 leagues. You have the Premier League, the Championship, then you have League 1, and then you have League 2. So the ranking is obviously the Premier League is rank 1, Championship is rank 2, League rank 2, and so on. In addition to that, you have the overall of the player, you have the potential of the player. So the overall rating is basically computed by FIFA itself. It says this is the player's current overall potential, is basically saying, oh, this is what the potential growth of the player will be in the future. Okay, how they compute this is they have their own trademark calculations for it, which we don't know. We are just using this data set today to understand some simple strategies to use in sports analysis for recruitment. So we can see the player's value, we can see their wage, we can also see the player positions as well as their preferred food, their international reputation, their weak foot, and then we can also see all the skill values, right? So as I move to the right, you can see their pace, their shooting value, their passing value, their dribbling value. You can see all of this data is available to us. So we're going to use all of this data today to complete our analysis. Okay, so we have all of this interesting data on us. So to get started, come to the bottom bar, click on sheet 1. And now let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to build a scatter chart today. And to build a scatter chart, what we need to do is we need to decide what's going on our x-axis, what's going on y-axis, and what our dots are going to be. So what are my dots going to be? My dots need to represent each player. And you may think that, the short name column, okay, represents a player. I'm going to argue to not use that because players can have similar names. Instead, what we're going to use is a SoFIFA ID. So what I'm going to do to start building my scatter chart is I'm going to take the SoFIFA ID, I'm going to drag and drop it on top of detail and click on add all members. After that, I want to take attacking finishing. So I'm going to search for attacking finishing. I'm going to drag and I'm going to drop that onto rows because I want that to be on my y-axis. And on my x-axis, what I want to put is my dribbling. Okay, I'm going to drag and drop dribbling into columns. And now we have a scatter chart right in front of us. But here's the problem with this scatter chart. This scatter chart right now shows me all the players in our data set, which is like over 18,000 plus players almost, okay? Which is what we don't want to see. We want to only take a look at players who meet our criteria, right? So one of the main things in our criteria which we immediately know is that we only want to look at players who are at least 22 years or younger. So I'm going to search for the age, column. I'm going to drag age and I'm going to drop it on top of filters. And I'm going to select all values and I'm going to say the player must be between the age of 16 to 22. We've already reduced the total number of players in front of us. Next up, I also know that the player must be, playing in a particular position, like in an attacking position. So I'm going to search for the position column. I'm going to drag team position. I'm going to drop it on top of filters. And I'm then just going to select all the positions that, they should be filling in. So this is ST, CF, LF, RF, LW, RW, CS, RS, LS, CAM. So I'm going to start right from the top. I'm going to select CAM, then CF. Then I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to select LF, LS, LW. Then I'm going to select RF, RS, RW, and ST. Let me go ahead and double check that we've not missed out on anything. Nope, doesn't seem like we missed out on anything. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and now click on OK. And now we've immediately reduced the total number of data points in front of us. Next up, we have a lot of white space out here on the left as well as on the right, right? We don't want to waste this space, right? We only want to focus on the players out here, so why should we waste this space? Minimalism is good, but not out here per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the y-axis. I'm going to go ahead and select edit axis, and then I'm going to select, or deselect actually. I'm going to deselect the include zero option. I'm going to right click on the dribbling x-axis. I'm going to click on edit axis then, and then I'm going to go ahead and deselect the include zero. So just right click on each axis, select edit axis, and then go ahead and select or deselect the include zero option. So now we have a much smaller data set in front of us. So this is one of the main things in sports analytics which we're already doing is we're usually filtering down our view to only see relevant information. Okay, we don't just want to see everything and anything. We only want to see relevant information. Now next up, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and add in the acceleration as well as the shot power of this player into this scatter chart, right? Because right now we only see the attacking, finishing, and the dribbling, but we also want to see the shot power and the acceleration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for shot power. So you'll see we have this field called power, shot power. I'm going to drag and I'm going to drop it on top of size. So the shot power is going to, decide the size of the dot basically. So the larger the bubble, the higher the shot power, the smaller the bubble, the smaller the shot power. Now, for the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and search for acceleration. I'm going to drag, I'm going to drop acceleration and drop it on top of my color. Okay. Now, here's the problem with my dots. Right now we have this movement acceleration. It's a slight blue to dark blue. I want to use green, like a yellow to green. theme, and what I want to do is I want to ensure my dots are filled, because that way I can then interpret my dots more easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select color. So click on the color tile in marks, and then just go ahead and select the green to gold color palette. Click on apply, and then we want our dots to be filled, so click on the shape tile and select the filled dot. Perfect. Now when I hover over these players, like I only see the SoFIFA ID, I don't see the player name, and I don't even see a player label attached to it out here. So let's go ahead and add in the player names. So I'm going to search for short name. Okay, I'm going to drag short name, I'm going to drop it on top of tooltip. So now when I hover over this tooltip, I can see the player's name. Fantastic. And I'm also going to go ahead and search for the short name again. I'm going to drag the short name, I'm going to drop it on top of label. So that way I can see the label of that basically is the dot name. So like, I don't have to hover over it each time. I can see the player name, just next to the dot each time. Now this is still busy. We're going to make this a lot smaller super quickly. Like this, the total number of dots in front of us is a lot lesser super quickly. So let's get started with that by creating some good filters. So you'll notice out here that we've been given some rules, right? Our criteria is that the player's finishing must be 70, the dribbling must be 65, acceleration must be 70, shot power must be 60 or more, right? So we have these rules. Let's start to apply these rules now into our chart in front of us. So search for finishing. Okay, finishing must be 70 or more. So drag attacking finishing and drop it on top of filters. Select all values, and we're going to say it should be from 70 to 91. Okay, already reduced the total number of players in front of us. Then search for dribbling. Drag dribbling on top of filters. Okay, it must be 65 or more. So let's go ahead and say dribbling must be 65 or more. Okay, then let's say acceleration must be 70 or more. So let's search for acceleration. Let's drag acceleration on top of this. Let's select all values and say the minimum for acceleration must be 70. Okay, and then we're going to search for shot power. I'm going to drag shot power on top of filters. I'm going to say shot power must be 60 or more, so select all values, and then perfect, should be 60 or more, which is great. Okay, now we have this chart in front of us which shows us all the players who qualify for our filters, right? Now what we want to do is we also want to only see players who are a good header of the ball, but we want to keep this as an option that they can also see players who may not be a good header of the ball. Okay, so you want to give the user the opportunity to basically say, okay, I want to see good headers of the ball, I want to see people who are not good headers of the ball, I want to give them the opportunity to see that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a calculated field, okay, which basically defines if a player is a good header of the ball or not, and the user can quickly toggle between that. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my cursor, I'm going to click on the arrow next to the search bar, I'm going to create a calculated field. I'm going to call this calculated field as good header of the ball. So what we are doing right now is basically something known as classification in sports analytics, which is a very common tactic used to classify players into different buckets, right? So we're creating two buckets out here. Are they a good header of the ball, or are they not a good header of the ball? So what I'm going to say is if, okay, attacking heading accuracy, okay, is greater than equal to 70, then we want the value to be 1. Okay, actually not, then we don't want it to be 1, we want it to be yes. Okay, else that means it's not greater than equal to 70, they're not a good header of the ball. And then I'll go ahead and conclude my condition statement with an end. If you don't put an end, it's going to tell you calculation contains errors. Okay, so you have to end your condition with an end statement. Click on OK, and now you have this new column called is good header of the ball. What I want to do is I want to hover my cursor over this new field, click on the arrow for it. I'm going to say show filter. Now this filter right now will pop up in the right panel as a filter card, and I can just go ahead and quickly select yes, and I can only see players who are now good headers of the ball. And what I can do is I can take my cursor, I can click on the arrow next to the filter card of is a good header of the ball, and I can basically say I want this to be a multiple value drop down. That way it's a little cleaner per se. Awesome, cool. Now next step, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to rename these filter cards. I don't want them to say the word sum, I just want them to be pretty simple and easy to understand. So I'll take my cursor, I'll click on the arrow out here. I'm just going to say edit title, and I want it to say short power. And I'm going to take my cursor, click on the arrow for sum of moment acceleration, and just call this acceleration. Okay, cool, perfect. Now, next step, I want to go ahead and add in, 2 ways for them to basically filter the when the contract's going to expire by, as well as the wages and the costs. So let's add in the filters for that. Search for wage, come to the left panel. I want you to go ahead and click on the arrow next to wage Europe. Okay, and what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to say show filter. So now we'll have a filter to change the wage. Then search for value. Click on the arrow for value, select show filter. Okay, and then search for contract. Click on the arrow for contract and select show filter. Perfect. Now we want the contract to be valid only till 2024, so just change the year to 2024. Must be expiring quickly. Obviously, we can't afford a player who's 105 million, right? We don't want those. We want smart buys. So maybe we'll set a budget to $35 million, or 35 million euros, my bad. So let's go ahead and make that 35 million. Okay, perfect. This represents a better set of players who we may be interested in. Let's also quickly rename these titles of our filter cards. So similar to what we just did earlier, click on the arrow for each filter card, click on edit title, change this to wage, click on the arrow for value, like for the value filter card, change this to value, click on the arrow for contract valid until, like that filter card, just changes to contract valid until. Perfect. Okay, now we got these really interesting tooltip cards which provide us with some information but not all the information which we need per se. Why do I say that? Because right now I don't know the player's value, I don't know when the contract is valid until, I don't know their position, I don't know which team they're playing for. I have none of that information, which will be super important for me as I'm recruiting a player into my team or looking for them to join my team per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this tooltip a little bit more informative. So to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for a few additional fields I want to add in to my tooltip. Okay, so what I'm going to search for, I'm first going to start off by searching for the position. I'm going to drag the team position and drag and drop it on top of tooltip. Next, I'm going to go ahead and drag for position again. I'm going to search for position. I'm going to drag player positions on top of my tooltip. So this is all the other positions a player can play in. So you see the main position and all the other positions they can play in. I'm then just going to search for team, actually search for club. So I'm going to search for club name. I'm going to drag and drop that on top of the tooltip so we know which club they're playing for. Then I'm going to search for value. So I want to see the value. I'm going to drag and drop their value on top of the tooltip tile so that we know their player value. I'm going to do the same for wage. I'm going to drag and drop their wage on top of the tooltip. Okay. And then I also want to know the overall and the potential, right? So you may want to know the current overall versus the potential in the future. So drag the overall, place it on top of tooltip. Okay. And search for potential and drag the potential, drop it on top of tooltip. Okay. And then obviously you may want to know when the contract expires. So drag contract valid until, drop it on top of tooltip. Okay, now this tooltip is a lot more informative for us, right? It tells us a lot more information about the player per se. So it's now time for us to go ahead and format this. So let's get started with formatting this tooltip to make it a lot more easier to read. So click on the tooltip tile and let's get started. So first up, I'm going to remove that short name text. I'm just going to make my short name a lot bigger. I'm going to make it 14 in font size, okay? So it stands out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the club name attribute. I'm going to paste it out here. And I'm going to take the team position and I'm going to paste it before that club name. I'm going to say 4. So you can basically see that the A Hlozek is a right striker for Celtic. Then I'm going to take their player positions. I'm going to place it right below it so we can see the other positions the player plays in. Okay? Cool. Next up, I need to know when the contract is valid until. Okay, so I'm going to say, instead of saying contract valid until, I'm going to say contract expires in, and we'll put the year it expires in. Okay, Perfect. Next, the SOFIFA ID is not super important to me. I'm going to put that right at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that at the bottom. And the player wage, I'm going to put this like side by side. And then I'm going to place it just below out here. I'm then going to go ahead and remove this extra stuff like that old content which we had, which you don't need. I'm going to put finishing, dribbling, acceleration, and power shot power next to each other. I'm going to take the overall and potential, and I'm going to do something very interesting which you may have not seen before. I'm going to use a very interesting like styling method. I'm going to go ahead and put the overall and potential values side by side so that it's easy to compare it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the overall like and potential values a font size of 12. So now I've gone ahead and I've built this new card for us which tells us everything we need to know about the player. So we have this tooltip which tells us that they're a right striker for Celtic. You can see the other positions. You can see when their contract expires, their overall, their potential, their value, their wage, their finishing skill, their dribbling skill, and so on. So all that information is available for us now. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now when I hover over any of these players, I get this detailed information. Fantastic. Now, one additional thing which I may want to do is I may want to actually add in the euro icon, like the euro symbol next to 12 million and next to 500. Just I want to teach you all this because it's pretty cool. So I'm going to search for value, and I want you to go ahead, like search for the value column in the left panel. Click on the arrow for value euro, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a number format to it. So click on the arrows, go to default properties, select number format. Once you select number format, select currency standard. Okay, or you can actually select currency custom, my bad. And what you can do is you can actually go ahead and say you want there to be 0 decimal places. Okay, and seems like we can't add in the euro icon directly, and I don't have it on my keyboard. What I can do is I can search for the euro symbol. So I'll search for the euro symbol, and I'll just copy this euro symbol. You don't need to do this. I think it's cool, so I'm doing it, but you don't need to. And I can even set the display units. So if I want the display units to be in millions, to just see how much the player costs versus like that long number, I can do that. So I'll just make it into millions. And now if I click on OK, let's just see how much easier it is to read this, right? So we can see the player's value. It says 12 million, 18 million. So much easier to read that text. Even out here, it's so much easier to read. Now for wage, I'm going to do something similar. Search for wage, click on the arrow out here. For wage euro, click on default properties, select number format, select currency custom, no decimal places. Okay, I'm going to copy this euro symbol, I'm going to place that as my prefix. And this time my display units will not be in millions, it'll be in thousands, because usually the player salaries are in thousands. Okay, like their wages per week are in thousands. Okay, so I'm going to click on OK, and now we can see the wage of each player, right? This is a 1K player. We can see how much we have to pay them per week. So we've gone ahead and we've built a really detailed, I would say tooltip out here. So this goes ahead and helps us better understand the players who are available in the market. Now, if you want to do this is not super important, but I think we can also add color steps so that it's easier for us to group these players in the acceleration categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the color tile. I'm going to click on edit colors, and I'm going to just add stepped colors. I'm going to add 5 steps. Okay. And I'll click on the OK button. Perfect. Now we've gone ahead and built a scatter chart. So I'm just going to rename this chart. I'm going to call it scatter chart by coming to the bottom bar. And next I'm going to go ahead and make a dashboard. So how will I build my dashboard? I'm going to come to the bottom bar. I'm going to click on the plus new dashboard button. I am now in a new dashboard. I'm going to change my dashboard size from the left panel. I'm going to change from range to automatic. Perfect. Next, drag your scatter chart, drop it on top of your dashboard space available, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag this entire like legend and filters container to the left side. That's my first step. Next, I'm going to go ahead and specifically drag my color legend. I'm going to place that on the right panel. I'm going to drag my short power legend. I'm going to drag that into the right panel below acceleration. Okay, try and place it below acceleration if you can. Otherwise, you just have to reorder things like what I just did. Perfect. Okay, so you should have something which looks similar to my chart right now. And what we now want to do is we want to go ahead and remove the title for this scatter chart, right? It says the word scatter chart, we don't need that. How will I remove the title? I'm going to keep the scatter chart selected. I'm going to click on the arrow out here. I'm going to just hide the title. Okay. And now to conclude today's session, I'm going to go ahead and drag this text object, and I'm going to go ahead and place it above contract valid until. Okay, you can do that. Actually, let's not do that. Click on cancel. Just go ahead and click on show dashboard title, and you can add a title out here. Let's type in strong strikers under the age of 22. Okay, perfect. And we can drag escort header of the ball. We can make that the first filter per se if you want to. Now let's go ahead and start interacting and just start to see how this chart changes as we start to select things and deselect things. So if we are looking at all players, even if they're not good headers of the ball, see how many more players drop. But if we only want good header, like someone who has a good header, then lot less options available. We can even play with the value filter, so we only want players who are like less than 35 million. And even if you want, you can let's say you want the wage to be maybe let's say you can play with that as well. But yeah, that's interesting. Under the age of 22, we should say 22 or under in age. Perfect. So yep, that's how you go ahead and build a dashboard that allows you to learn more about players in soccer who can potentially be good fits for your team. So now this is basically a great resource for the recruitment team of your club, because what they can go ahead and do is they can now quickly start to identify players who may be a good fit for recruitment and who they could potentially sell in the future, because this is providing them a lot more information as compared to what they had earlier. So today with data, people can make a lot better decisions, and I hope you enjoyed today's session where you learned more about that. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to message DubsTech at uw.edu or reach out to us in the comments. Take care. Bye.